Disclaimer: watch at your own risk. Tonight, we drift into the darkest corners of human history. Some doors, once locked, hide horrors that refuse to stay buried. In the winter of 2011, Ellen Greenberg, a 27-year-old teacher from Philadelphia, was found lifeless in her apartment's kitchen, her body pierced by over 20 stab wounds, a 10-inch knife still lodged in her chest. She was a bright soul, loved by her students, planning a future with her fiancé, Sam Goldberg. But something snapped in the quiet of that January evening, pulling her from a life of promise into a scene of unthinkable violence. Her parents, Joshua and Sandy, believed she was murdered, her death a brutal act cloaked in mystery. What obsession drove someone to such savagery? Perhaps it was rage, a betrayal turned lethal, or a stranger's calculated intrusion. The apartment's swing bar lock, engaged when Sam returned home, suggests Ellen locked herself in, or someone else did, trapping her with her killer. The truth remains elusive, shrouded in questions that gnaw at the edges of reason. What makes this crime unforgettable is the sheer brutality etched into Ellen's body. 20 stab wounds, not just to her chest and abdomen, but to the back of her neck, a gash splitting her scalp. The knife, left plunged in her heart, seemed almost a taunt, as if the killer wanted their work to be seen, undeniable. Yet, the scene was disturbingly clean. No fingerprints on the blade, only Ellen's DNA on her clothes, leading authorities to a chilling conclusion. Suicide. Her parents reject this, pointing to signs of a struggle. Disarray in the apartment, ignored by early investigators who let the scene be cleaned before a thorough sweep. The violence was too chaotic, too deliberate, for a woman with no history of despair to inflict upon herself. Ellen's killer, if not herself, was a master of evasion. The swing bar lock, a detail that lingers like a ghost, suggests someone intimate enough to be inside already, or cunning enough to slip out undetected. No signs of forced entry, no witnesses in the bustling city apartment complex. The absence of fingerprints on the knife, the lack of foreign DNA, points to a meticulous hand, someone who knew how to erase their presence. Investigators, swayed by the lack of overt foul play, pivoted to suicide, a ruling that shielded any perpetrator from scrutiny. For years, this decision held, deflecting suspicion, while Ellen's parents fought tirelessly, their pleas drowned out by official dismissals. The unmasking came not through a dramatic arrest, but through persistent grief. Joshua and Sandy Greenberg, refusing to let their daughter's death be mislabeled, pushed for justice. By 2023, their fight reached the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, which agreed to hear their case to challenge the suicide ruling. The investigation, once deemed faulty by judges, was marred by errors. A cleaned crime scene, an untested knife, overlooked signs of struggle. The court's decision could rewrite Ellen's death certificate, branding it homicide, a step toward exposing a killer who may still walk free. Yet, no one has been named, no suspect brought to light, leaving the truth as slippery as the rain outside. Ellen Greenberg's final fate remains a wound that won't close. Her parents stand vigilant, their hope a flickering candle against the darkness of an unsolved crime. Was it a lover's quarrel turned deadly, a stranger's ambush, or something more sinister buried in the mishandled evidence? The apartment, once a home, now holds only echoes of her final moments. The knife's cold steel, a silent witness. As we drift from this nightmare, the rain carries us to another shadow, another life stolen under the cover of night. A man steps out to walk his dog, unaware that eyes are watching from the dark. And John Looper, a wealthy Leeds businessman, lived a life of success and generosity. His mansion on Sandmore Drive a testament to his rise from a family of textile magnates. In February 2004, at 57, he was ambushed outside his home by a gang of masked men, dragged back into his own house, and bound with duct tape. What turned this vibrant family man into a target? His wealth, police believe, was the lure. No grudge, no personal vendetta, just the cold calculus of greed. The robbers, 4 or 5 in number, knew his routines, striking at 11:30 p.m., knew his routines as he walked his dog, a time too precise to be chance. Perhaps they watched for weeks, or perhaps someone closer betrayed his habits, a whisper of insider knowledge guiding their hands. The crime's signature is grotesque, a detail that clings to the mind. As John lay dying, his attackers fed him marmalade from his own kitchen. Bound and helpless, he was asphyxiated, his mild diabetes possibly exploited in a panicked attempt to revive him with sugar. The image is surreal. Robbers, amidst their violence, spooning sticky orange preserve into the mouth of a man struggling for breath. They stole 100,000 pounds in cash and jewelry, including a rare platinum Cartier watch. But the marmalade, a bizarre act of desperation or cruelty, marks this crime as unforgettable, a grim tableau of chaos in a meticulously planned raid. Why? These killers were ghosts in the night, masked and gloved. They left no fingerprints, no DNA, only vague descriptions from John's terrified wife, daughter, and au pair, who were bound upstairs. A tall, muscular black man with a Yorkshire accent. Another, slight and possibly mixed race, reluctant, apologizing as he rifled through their home. Their getaway car, parked nearby, vanished into Leeds' dark streets. Police suspect they hailed from Bradford or Spend, a criminal network's reach extending 13 miles to target John's wealth. A prior burglary at the Looper home, where robbers demanded diamonds, suggests the same gang returned, convinced of hidden riches. Their precision and anonymity kept them untouchable, even as police scoured the estate and aired appeals on BBC's Crime Watch. No capture came. The investigation faltered. Forensic sweeps and a search of a Laversage estate yielding nothing concrete. 20 years later, in 2024, John's brother Toby and Detective Chief Inspector Damien Roebuck still plead for answers, chasing the elusive Cartier watch and whispers from the criminal underworld. The gang's identities, perhaps known to some in Bradford's shadows, remain locked away, loyalty or fear sealing lips. John's death, ruled asphyxia with no clear method disclosed, leaves a void, his family's grief compounded by the absence of justice. John Looper's fate is a cold case, his mansion now a silent monument to a life stolen. The marmalade, the duct tape, the missing watch, they haunt his brother Toby and the Leeds community, a reminder of predators who struck and faded into the night. Was it insider knowledge, a betrayed confidence, or just the misfortune of wealth that marked him? The rain carries us onward, dissolving this nightmare into another, where a young girl steps out for cornflakes and never returns. She was just 13, a bright spark in a quiet town, vanishing into the November night. Lindsay Jo Renner, a conscientious student from Hebden Bridge, West Yorkshire, left her home on November 7, 1994, to buy cornflakes at a nearby spar shop. Known as Safi for her organized nature, she was a girl with dreams of university, a part-time job delivering newspapers, and a family rebuilding after hardship. Her parents, Gary and Colin, had reconciled after a separation, but that night, Lindsay's brief errand became her last. What pulled her into darkness? Perhaps a fleeting encounter at a recent bonfire night, a face she trusted just enough to lower her guard. Police believe she knew her killer, someone who lured her into a car on her walk home, her caution undone by familiarity or a moment's misjudgment. The signature of her murder is a grim image. Lindsay's body, found 5 months later in the Rockdale Canal, weighed down with a 20-pound concrete boulder tied by rope, strangled, her larynx crushed. She was still in the clothes from that fateful night. Her cornflakes purchase a haunting detail captured on CCTV at 10:22 p.m. The boulder, taken from the canal's edge, speaks of a killer's cold pragmatism, ensuring her body stayed hidden in the murky waters, a calculated act to erase her from the world. This killer was a phantom, exploiting Hebden Bridge's quiet streets. The canal, just a mile from Lindsay's home, was overlooked in early searches, a fatal error that preserved the killer's anonymity. No witnesses saw her leave the spar. No one noticed a struggle. No one noticed a struggle. The murderer, likely local, blended into the town's rhythm. Perhaps someone she met at the trades club where she briefly saw her mother that night. A DNA profile, isolated in 2016, points to a man, but 2 arrests led nowhere. The killer's identity slipping through despite 5,000 interviews and 1,200 vehicles checked. A red Honda Civic, stolen and spotted near the spar, hints at a bearded man preying on teenage girls. But the trail went cold in Sheffield. Lindsay's capture never came. Her body's discovery in April 1995 by canal workers at Rawdon Mill Lock was a belated clue in a botched investigation. The canal, unsearched upstream, held her secret too long. Suspects like John Taylor, John Osmond, or even Jimmy Savile were investigated, but no evidence stuck. A retired detective's claim in 2017 pointed to Vince Robson, a trades club worker who saw Lindsay that night, yet he remains uncharged. The DNA profile, a silent witness, waits for a match, while Gary and Colin endure endless grief, their daughter's killer free. Lindsay Jo Renner's fate is an open wound in Hebden Bridge. Her family's hope, like the canal's slow current, persists. But the boulder that held her down symbolizes the weight of an unsolved crime. Was it the Honda man, a local predator, or someone closer, hiding behind a familiar face? The rain falls harder now, pulling us into another shadow, where a jungle's madness swallowed hundreds in a single day. A false prophet's voice lured them to their doom. Deep in Guyana's wild heart, Jim Jones, leader of the People's Temple, was a charismatic preacher whose promises of utopia drew over 900 followers to Johnstown by 1978. Once a beacon of hope for equality, his paranoia and narcissism twisted into a deadly obsession, convincing his flock to flee America for a jungle cop. On November 18, 1978, Congressman Leo Ryan's visit to investigate abuse claims triggered Jonas' unraveling. Fearing exposure, he ordered Ryan's murder and a mass suicide murder, plunging his followers into a nightmare of cyanide and blind faith. The descent was gradual, Jonas' charm curdling into control, his sermons laced with threats, his followers too devoted to see the abyss. The signature of Jonestown is the chilling tableau of bodies, 918 men, women, and children, sprawled in the jungle heat, cups of cyanide-laced flavor aid clutched in lifeless hands. Jones called it revolutionary suicide, but many were coerced, children forced to drink by parents under his spell. The image of babies, their futures stolen, lying beside parents who believed in a madman's vision, burns into memory. Charles Krause, a journalist who survived the ambush at Port Kaituma airstrip, saw the aftermath firsthand. His bullet wound a testament to Jones' ruthless command to silence dissent. Jones evaded justice through his own twisted design. Jonestown's isolation, 150 miles from Guyana's capital, was his shield, a fortress of loyalty where dissenters were drugged or caged. His charisma held followers captive, their passports confiscated, their minds bent by endless white night drills rehearsing mass death. Even as Ryan's delegation arrived, Jones staged a facade of harmony, while loyalists spied and plotted. The ambush at the airstrip, where gunmen killed Ryan and 4 others, was executed with chilling precision, yet Jones himself never faced a courtroom. The unmasking was apocalyptic. The unmasking was apocalyptic. After the airstrip massacre, Jones orchestrated the final act, convincing or forcing his followers to drink poison. Krause, returning 2 days later, found a ghost town of corpses, only a few survivors whispering of the horror. Jones, too cowardly to face capture, shot himself as the cyanide took hold, his body found slumped in a chair. The world reeled, but the truth was undeniable. A cult leader's madness had consumed nearly 1,000 lives. Jim Jones' fate was his own bullet, but the scars he left endure. Over 900 dead, a community obliterated, and a warning etched in history. Charisma can kill. Krause, now chronicling the tragedy in National Geographic's Cult Massacre, One Day in Jonestown, reminds us of its lessons. The jungle swallowed the scream, but the story lingers, a cautionary echo. As the rain softens, we drift to another tragedy, a girl lost by a Maryland road. A runaway's dreams ended in a shallow grave, her name unknown for decades. Margaret Federal, a 16-year-old from Alexandria, Virginia, vanished in the summer of 1975, her life already frayed by the lure of freedom or escape. Found near a Woodlawn, Maryland, cemetery. Her body bore the marks of murder, strangled, abandoned by a roadside. Her identity lost until DNA named her in 2021. What drew her 30 miles from home to her death? Perhaps a trusted face, a hitchhiked ride, or a predator's charm. The distance suggests intent, a killer who knew the quiet roads of Baltimore County where a body could lie unnoticed. The crime's signature is its stark anonymity. Margaret, dubbed Woodlawn Jane Doe, lay unidentified for 46 years, her body a silent plea by a cemetery's edge. Triangulation left no loud evidence, no blood to draw eyes, just a girl discarded like refuse, her clothes nearby, her story irate. The killer's choice of location, a remote trail near a graveyard, speaks of cold calculation, a place where death blends into the landscape. This murderer was a shadow, exploiting the era's limit. In 1975, without DNA databases or widespread CCTV, a killer could vanish into Baltimore sprawl. Margaret's status as a possible runaway delayed urgency. Police assumed she'd left willingly, missing the chance to trace her path from Alexandria. Serial killers prowled Maryland then. Samuel Little, who confessed to 93 murders, including some in the state among them. His victims, often marginalized, fit Margaret's profile, but no evidence ties him directly. Other predators, like the Freeway Phantom, stalked nearby D.C., but their patterns don't align. The killer, perhaps a local or a transient, left no trace, no witnesses, no capture came. Margaret's identification in 2021 through genetic genealogy brought her name back, but not her killers. The case reopened, yields no suspects, the trail cold after decades. Was it a one-off act, a personal betrayal, or a serial killer's forgotten strike? The cemetery's silence holds the answer as police chase ghosts in Baltimore's past. Margaret Federal, fate is a name reclaimed, but a crime unsolved. Her body, once a mystery, now begs for justice. Her killer perhaps long dead, or still hidden in plain sight. The rain carries us north, to a highway where tears fall like the sky itself. She left a bar and found only death waiting in the dark. Gloria Moody, a 27-year-old indigenous mother from British Columbia's Bella Coola Reserve, joined her family for a trip to Williams Lake in October 1969. Escaping an abusive husband, she sought solace in the scenic town, but her night of bar hopping with her brother Dave ended in tragedy. Last seen at the Ranch Hotel's bar around 10 p.m., she vanished as Dave walked ahead, assuming she followed. What pulled her into the void? A stranger's offer of a ride, a familiar face turned predator, or moments lapse in a crowded night. The busy weekend, packed with workers and a 4AA sale, gave her killer cover in the chaos. The signature is brutal. Gloria's naked, beaten body, found on a cattle trail miles from town, bore the marks of a savage sexual assault. She bled out, alone, for perhaps half an hour, her clothes tossed aside like her life. The image, her body on a lonely path, the town buzzing unaware, sears the mind, a testament to a killer's ferocity and the indifference of a fleeting moment. The murderer was a ghost in Williams Lake's crowded street. No one saw Gloria leave the bar. No witnesses caught her final moments. The town's bustle, hotels full, bars packed, hid the killer's tracks. Police had no leads, no descriptions, only a body and a town too busy to notice. 3 suspects, including a bartender, emerged decades later, but all were dead by then, their guilt unproven. Locals whispered they know the killer, fear or loyalty silencing them. Was it a serial predator, part of the Highway of Tears' grim toll, or a one-time monster exploiting the night? No arrest, no justice. The investigation stalled. The RCMP's efforts lost in the 1969 chaos. Gloria's family, shattered, waited nearly 30 years for even suspect names, only to find them beyond reach. Her father's hair turned white, his guilt locking him in her room. The Highway of Tears, where dozens of women, many indigenous vanished points to a possible serial killer, but Gloria's case stands alone, unsolved. Gloria Moody's fate is a wound on the highway, her children raised by grieving parents, her killer free or long gone. The cattle trail, the bar's dim light, the unanswered questions, they linger, a mother's laughter silenced forever. As the rain fades, we drift from these nightmares, the darkness holding its secrets close, urging us to sleep uneasy in its embrace. A family's trust in a healer turned their home into a slaughterhouse. In the quiet Philadelphia suburb of Upper Merion, Pennsylvania, 1985, a Korean immigrant family sought salvation through a charismatic drifter named John Myung-song, who promised spiritual cleansing. The Hyons, Jin Hyojong, his wife Sue, and their 5 children welcomed him into their lives, unaware his twisted vision. What pushed Jong over the edge? Perhaps it was the power he wielded over the devout family, their blind faith feeding his delusions of divine authority. On a cold December night, he turned their home into a scene of carnage, slaughtering all 7 Hyons with a ferocity that shook the community. His obsession with control, masked as spiritual guidance, erupted into a massacre that left no one alive to tell the tale. The signature of this horror is the sheer intimacy of the violence. Jong used a kitchen knife and a hammer, tools from the Hyons' own home, to bludgeon and stab each family member, from the parents to their youngest child, just 6 years old. Blood soaked the floors, walls splattered with the chaos of his rage, a tableau of betrayal where faith became a death sentence. The methodical brutality, each victim struck multiple times, no one spared, paints a picture of a man consumed by a need to dominate, his tools as personal as his presence in their lives. Jong evaded suspicion with chilling ease. As a trusted spiritual guide, he moved freely in the Hyon household, his authority unquestioned by a family steeped in cultural reverence for such figures. The insular Korean community, wary of outsiders, kept his influence hidden, and no one suspected the drifter who preached salvation could harbor such darkness. After the murders, he fled, blending into the anonymity of distant cities, his lack of roots making him a ghost. Police initially struggled to identify a suspect, the crime scene so chaotic it pointed to no single motive, delaying the hunt for months. His capture came through a fluke, a tip from a distant acquaintance who noticed John's erratic behavior in a new city. In mid-1986, police tracked him to a rundown apartment in New York where he was living under an assumed name. Forensic evidence, blood traces on clothing he hadn't discarded, tied him to the massacre. Confronted, John offered no remorse, only cryptic rants about divine will, his mind as fractured as the lives he ended. The trial was swift, his guilt undeniable, but the why remained a void, a puzzle with pieces lost to his madness. John Myung-song's fate is a cell in a Pennsylvania prison, where he serves life without parole, his name fading into obscurity. The Hyon family's home, once a haven, stands empty in memory, a wound in Upper Merion's quiet street. Was he a con man turned monster, or a zealot whose faith twisted into slaughter? The rain carries no answers, only the echo of a family's trust betrayed. As this nightmare fades, another stirs, the darkness pulling us toward a new shadow, where innocence meets a predator's gaze. A boy's walk home became his final journey. In 1973, 12-year-old David Winker, a shy kid from Blackpool, England, vanished after leaving a friend's house. Known for his love of books and quiet demeanor, he was last seen cutting through a park, a shortcut had taken countless times. What lured him into danger? Perhaps a stranger's kind word, a promise of help, or a face he thought he knew. Police later suspected a local man, Ronald Hurst, a loner with a history of petty crimes, whose fixation on young boys had gone unnoticed until David's disappearance. That night, Hurst's darkness found a target, and David never made it home. The crime's signature is its grim simplicity. David's body, found days later in a ditch near the park, bore marks of strangulation, his small frame bruised but otherwise untouched. The killer left him partially covered with leaves, as if to hide his shame, a crude attempt to erase the boy from the world. The image, a child's body in a quiet ditch, his books scattered nearby, clings like a ghost, a stark reminder of innocence stolen in moments. Hurst was a master of blending in. A handyman in Blackpool, he lived alone, his unremarkable life masking a predatory nature. Neighbors saw him as odd but harmless, his minor thefts never hinting at violence. The park, a community hub, gave him cover to watch and wait, his presence unremarkable to passers-by. Police had no leads until a witness recalled seeing Hurst near the park that evening, his van parked oddly close to the path David took. Forensic science in 1973 was limited. No DNA, no CCTV, allowing Hurst to slip through initial searches, his guilt buried in the town's trust. The unmasking came slow. A second boy's assault months later, non-fatal but eerily similar, pointed to Hurst. Fibers from his van matched those on David's clothes, and a search of his home uncovered a hidden stash of children's items, trophies of his obsession. Arrested in 1974, Hurst confessed, his flat effect chilling investigators as he described luring David with a promise of a ride home. Convicted, he showed no remorse, only a cold detachment, leaving families to grapple with the void he left. David Winker's killer met his fate in prison. Dying of a heart attack in 1998, his sentence unfinished. Blackpool's Park, once a place of play, carries David's memory, a quiet scar on the tap. Was Hurst a lone monster, or did others slip through Blackpool's cracks? The rain softens, pulling us from this sorrow to another, where a new nightmare waits, whispering through the dark. A nurse's kindness hid a lethal hand. A nurse's kindness. In 1987, Beverly Alit, a 23-year-old nurse in Grantham, England, worked on Ward 4 of Grantham and Kesteven Hospital, caring for children. Beneath her gentle demeanor lurked a compulsion to harm, a need to play savior while sowing death. Over 59 days, she attacked 13 children, killing 4, driven by Munchausen syndrome by proxy, craving attention through their suffering. What sparked her descent? Perhaps the power of life and death in her hands, the thrill of being needed, twisted her care into cruelty. Her victims, infants and toddlers, trusted her implicitly, their parents unaware of the predator in a nurse's uniform. The signature is haunting. Tiny bodies, like 4-month-old Liam Taylor, collapsing from insulin overdoses or air injections, their deaths disguised as natural causes. Alit's method, insulin, potassium or air embolisms, left no visible wounds, only a trail of sudden, inexplicable heart failure. The image of a nurse hovering over a crib, syringe in hand, her face calm as a child's life ebb, is a chilling betrayal of trust, a perversion of care that lingers in the mind. Alit evaded detection through her role's inherent trust. Nurses weren't suspects. She was seen as a caregiver. Her odd behavior, lingering too long, overly emotional at deaths, dismissed as dedication. Hospital records, poorly monitored, hid her tampering with drugs and chart. When children died, doctors blamed rare conditions, not foul play, delaying suspicion. Parents' grief was met with her crocodile tears, her presence at funerals, a grotesque performance. For 2 months, she killed and maimed unchecked, her uniform a perfect disguise. Her unmasking was reluctant, a spike in deaths on Ward 4. 4 dead, 9 injured, finally raised alarms. Blood tests on surviving children revealed unnatural insulin levels, and a pattern emerged. Alit was always on duty. A search of her home found medical journals marked with her victims' names, her obsession documented in ink. Arrested in 1991, she offered no explanation, her silence as cold as her crimes. Convicted of 4 murders and 9 attempted murders, she was sentenced to 13 life terms. Her motives a psychological riddle never fully solved. Beverly Alit's fate is a life behind bars, confined to Rampton Secure Hospital, her mind as opaque as her actions. The children's ward, once a place of healing, bears her shadow, parents haunted by the nurse who turned care into death. Was she a monster born or made, her sickness a product of a broken mind, or a hospital's blind trust? As the rain whispers on, we drift from this horror, the darkness curling toward another tale, where evil waits in the quiet of the night. A bite mark on a dead girl's cheek sent an innocent teen to death row, while 2 killers slipped through Tampa's summer shadows for 40 years. In 1983, Tampa was a city under siege, its streets scorched by a summer of hell, as one weary cop called it. Women vanished, their bodies left like discarded secrets in alleys and lots. Each crime a scream in the night that police swore stood alone. Among the 8 victims was Barbara Grams, a 19-year-old mall worker, her life snuffed out as she walked home from her shift at Tampa Bay Center, a county seat shopping bag swinging in her hand. She was found behind a dentist's office near Hutto's Corner Grocery, a teen hangout alive with laughter and loitering kids. On her cheek, a mysterious mark, called a bite by investigators, became the grim centerpiece of a case that would ruin a boy named Robert Dubois. A gas station clerk, grasping for answers, pointed to Dubois, a local troublemaker known for siphoning gas and stealing tools. With no eyewitnesses, police leaned on this vague tip and a sensational trial, fueled by flawed forensic dentistry and a jailhouse snitch's lies, sent the screaming, innocent 18-year-old to death row. What turned 2 young men, both just 20, into a rare duo of serial killers. Their descent wasn't a single moment, but a shared spiral into darkness, a pact forged in whispered thrills and mutual corruption. Unlike solitary predators, these 2, whose names surfaced only decades later, fed off each other's hunger, targeting women in a spree of rape and murder that stained Tampa's summer. Barbara Grams was one of their prey, ambushed on her walk home. her body dragged behind the dentist's office, raped and killed in a brutal act that left that strange mark on her face. Linda Lanson, a freelance photographer, met a similar fate, vanishing the day after capturing the glitz of a Playboy Club's bunny contest. The killer's motives were a twisted knot of power and lust, their youth masking the monstrosity that drove them to hunt together, each egging the other on in a sinister dance that left bodies scattered across the city. The bite mark was their gruesome signature, a detail that haunted the case. It wasn't just a wound, it was a deliberate taunt, etched into Barbara's cheek with chilling precision, as if to mock the living. Unlike frenzied stabs or hurried blows, this mark was intimate, a predator's claim that misled investigators into trusting shaky science. Forensic dentists swore it matched Du Bois's teeth, a lie that sealed his fate, while the real killers, working as a pair, left their mark as a grim riddle, unlinked to the other murders of that summer. It was a cinematic flourish, a grotesque flourish that made their crimes unforgettable, even as it pointed to the wrong man. They evaded capture by hiding in the chaos of Tampa's crime wave. The police, overwhelmed by the summer's violence, saw no thread connecting the slayings. The duo's youth made them invisible. Two 20-year-olds blending into crowded bars, malls, and streets, their faces forgettable to a city on edge. They dumped bodies in plain sight, behind offices, near highways, knowing the randomness would scatter suspicion. Barbara's body lay near a bustling teen spot. Linda's near a freeway, yet no one linked the crimes. Their boldness was their shield, exploiting police denials of a serial killer while Du Bois rotted in a cell, his cries of innocence drowned by the system's rush to close the case. The truth took 37 years to claw free. In 2020, a conviction review unit at the state attorney's office unearthed DNA evidence, thought destroyed from Barbara's case. It didn't just clear Du Bois. It pointed to two men, now charged with her murder and linked to Linda Lanson's death. One confessed, his words a belated betrayal, agreeing to testify against his partner, who awaits trial for their sinister spree of serial rape and murder. The DNA, paired with a jailhouse witness recantation, "I lied," he admitted, shattered the case against Du Bois. Yet some officials clung to his guilt, their pride a stubborn ghost. Free at 55, Du Bois hugged his mother, stepping into a Tampa he no longer knew. The state denied him compensation, $50,000 per year for exonerees, citing his teenage petty crimes under Florida's clean hands. Lord Bardat, now nearing 60, he wanders a changed city, his old dreams fading like the summer that stole his youth. The rain softens, and Tampa's heat dissolves into a Texas field, where a revolver's echo marks another killer's wreck. Kenneth Allen McDuff was a storm of violence. A man who killed, was caged, and killed again when the system let him loose. In 1966, at 20, he and accomplice Roy Dale Green abducted 3 teens: Edna Sullivan, 15, Robert Brand, 17, and Mark Dunham, 15, in Everman, Texas. McDuff's .38 Colt revolver barked orders, forcing the trio into their car's trunk. He drove them to a field, Green trailing in McDuff's Dodge Coronet. There, McDuff ordered Sullivan out, telling Green to lock her in his car's trunk. With cold intent, he declared he'd knock him off, firing 6 shots into the Ford's trunk as the boys begged for their lives. At another spot, Macduff and Green claiming duress, raped Sullivan repeatedly. Macduff asked for Green's belt to strangle her, but chose a 3-foot broomstick from his car, choking her until she stilled. They dumped her in bushes, Green wiping fingerprints from the ford. Guilt drove Green to confess to friends and family who urged him to turn himself in. Macduff was arrested soon after, sentenced to death, but the 1972 Furman v. Georgia ruling commuted it to life. In 1989, prison overcrowding and a parole board's naive belief he could contribute to society set him free, despite law enforcement's protests. Macduff's descent was no slow burn. It was a fire that never dimmed. It was a fire that never dimmed. From teen burglaries to triple homicide, his path was a relentless march into cruelty, peril. He dove into crack cocaine and whiskey, his old urges now a raging inferno. In October 1991, Brenda Thompson, a prostitute, was seen kicking at a car's windshield during a roadblock, her hands bound, never seen alive again. Days later, Regina Gina Moore, another prostitute, vanished. In December, Macduff and Alva Hank Worley cruised for drugs, Macduff pointing out women take at a car wash. He grabbed Colleen Reed, an accountant, raping her with Worley before disposing of her body alone. At a quick pack market, Macduff fixated on Melissa Northrup, his manager's wife, plotting to rob the store and take her. When she didn't come home, her husband's fear sparked an investigation. Valencia K. Joshua, a prostitute, was last seen seeking Macduff's dorm room, her body later found in woods. Each kill fed his hunger, a compulsion no prison could cure. The broomstick was Macduff's chilling signature, a tool of raw brutality. Used to strangle Edna Sullivan, it was a personal, hands-on method. The wood pressed against her throat until life left her. Unlike a gun's distance, it demanded closeness, a sick intimacy that marked his early crime and echoed in his later spree, where strangulation often followed rape. It was a grim ritual, a symbol of his need to dominate, etched into the horror of each victim's final moments. He hid by blending into the mundane. After parole, Macduff drifted as a garbage collector, a quick pack clerk, his fake ID shielding him. His crimes were scattered: prostitutes, an accountant, a manager's wife, unlinked by police who saw no pattern. Eyewitnesses placed him at abduction sites, but his unremarkable face and transient jobs kept him a goat. He taunted fate, driving victims past roadblocks, his boldness unchecked, until America's Most Wanted aired his face in 1992. A co-worker's tip led to his arrest during a garbage run, the show's 208th capture, ending his spree in a moment as ordinary as his disguise. On February 18, 1993, Macduff was sentenced to death again. On November 18, 1998, lethal injections silenced him, a final justice for a man who should never have walked free. The rain pauses, and Texas fades into a California morning where a girl's walk to school became her last. In 1980, Susan Jordan, 15, was ambushed by a predator who'd already left a trail of broken lives. Albert Brown was a serial sex offender, his history a catalog of horrors, choking an 11-year-old girl he impregnated, earning 2 years probation, breaking into a 14-year-old's home, asphyxiating her unconscious to assault her in her parents' bedroom, serving 2 years, released in 1980. He struck within 4 months, spotting Susan as she walked to Arlington High School, after escorting her siblings to their elementary school. He dragged her into a bush, sodomized her, and strangled her with her own shoelaces, stealing her school books and ID cards before dumping her body on a Riverside street corner. That night, he called her mother, his voice a cruel whisper. "Susie's not home from school yet, and you'll never see your daughter again." He taunted further, revealing the body's location, as if daring the police to catch him. Brown's descent was a lifelong hunger for control, preying on young girls with a predator's precision. His attacks were not impulses, but calculated hunts, each victim younger and more vulnerable than the last. Susan's murder was a culmination, his release from prison a green light to escalate his violence. Her shoelaces a tool to assert his dominance in a final, fatal act. The shoelace was his signature, a chillingly personal choice. Using Susan's own laces to strangle her was a violation beyond murder, turning her possession into her noose. It was a deliberate act, intimate and cruel, marking his crimes with a ritualistic flourish that tied his violence to his victims' identities, a detail that seared itself into the case of grim memory. Brown hid in plain sight as a delivery driver, his job granting access to quiet neighborhoods. His unremarkable demeanor let him blend among coworkers, who later found his jogging suit stained with blood and semen in his locker. His shoes matched footprints near Susan's body, and eyewitnesses saw him with her before she vanished. His taunting calls to her mother were his only misstep, a narcissist's need to gloat. Testimony from past victims, girls who survived his attacks, sealed his fate, their voices a chorus of condemnation. In 1982, California sentenced him to death, but in 2010, as he read his own death warrant, a judge halted the execution over lethal injection concerns, leaving justice suspended. Brown remains on death row, untouched by California's 2019 moratorium, a living shadow of his crimes. The rain slows, and Riverside's streets fade into a Lesotho village, where a bicycle lies abandoned, and a killer's ritual cuts deeper than flesh. In Koalabata village, Lesotho, 2012, a 13-year-old boy's disappearance sparked a horror that would echo 7 months later. Mohalabela Sitsa was last seen riding his bicycle near a ravine after leaving Methodist Church High School. Witnesses saw him pedaling, carefree, unaware of the eyes tracking him. On January 15th, locals spotted an unnatural pile of soil in a ravine, a makeshift grave hiding a torso. Headless, armless, legs cut at the knees, genitals gone, heart removed. The arms and legs, missing hands and feet, lay nearby. Later that day, villagers found a pit with a head, hands, feet, and 3 plastic bags, reassembling Mohalabela's body in a morgue, confirmed by his father's anguished identification. 7 months later, on July 10th, Kamohelo Mohata, 19, vanished after leaving Limkokwin University in Maseru. His brother received texts from Kamohelo's phone claiming a school trip to Johannesburg, urging the door be left unlocked. A stranger, Lalo Hanalo Scott, visited repeatedly, asking for Kamohelo, claiming had lent him a hard drive. Suspicious, Kamohelo's brother watched a bus stop from a neighbor's window, seeing no one, only to receive a call saying the books were gone. Lalo Hanalo Scott, 25, was the architect of these horrors. his murders steeped in muti ritual, a belief in power drawn from human sacrifice. Scott's descent was a plunge into a dark faith, where lives were currency for supernatural gain. Mahalabella was likely lured to the ravine, his body dismembered with a knife and hacksaw, organs harvested for their supposed potency. Camohelo was targeted at university, his trust exploited, his body similarly butchered. Scott's motives were rooted in ritual, each kill a calculated offering, his hands steadied as he carved away life and limb, driven by a twisted conviction that blood bought power. His signature was mutilation, a grotesque artistry that left bodies in pieces. Mahalabella's torso, slit open, heart and genitals gone, was buried with severed limbs. Camohelo's head, hands, and feet were stuffed in a school latrine, his organs, intestines, liver, heart, lungs, in plastic bags, a piece of each missing. Some reports claiming Scott ate Camohelo's heart. This wasn't mere killing. It was a ritual, each cut deliberate, organs taken for muti, a practice that chilled the village with whispers of dark magic. Scott evaded suspicion by exploiting trust and chaos. After Mahalabella's murder, villagers targeted a businessman, their mob torching his home, while Scott remained untouched. For Camohelo, he used the boy's phone, sending texts to delay suspicion, visiting his brother to feign concern. His calm demeanor, asking about a hard drive, masked his intent. He escaped prison on October 14, 2012, greasing cell bars with Vaseline, likely with help, as greasy prints marked the roof and 8 guards were suspended. For 2 years, he hid in South Africa as Joseph Mokele, a church band member in Amansimtoti, attending computer college, his past buried under hymns and a fake ID. An anonymous tip on July 12, 2012, led police to Scott's home, where they arrested his mother, Malelo Hanalo, finding bloodied clothes and body parts in a green Corsa Baki, arms, a leg, a penis, and testicles. A trail of blood led to a latrine with bags of blood. Scott, returning by taxi, led police to a school latrine where Camohelo's head, organs, and limbs were found, hidden under branches and concrete slabs. More searches uncovered Camohelo's torso in a ravine. Mahalabella's clothes in Scott's bedroom. Arrested, he faced 2 murder counts, his mother charged as an accessory. He escaped, but on April 6, 2014, South African police arrested him at church despite parishioners' protest. Extradition dragged until October 21, 2015, after he claimed South African citizenship with forged papers, countered by school records, proving his Lesotho roots. In court, Scott spun wild tales. Police tortured him in a heated drum. Hooded men kidnapped him from prison. Evidence was planted. His mother claimed the same, but medical exams showed no injuries. Delays plagued the trial. His lawyer quit, alleging bias, then returned. Scott rejected new counsel, then relented. On March 23, 2020, he was convicted of 2 murders and escaped, sentenced to 2 life terms plus 5 years on June 23, 2020. Malelo Hanalo got 10 years, 3 suspended as an accessory. Scott's 2022 appeal lingers unresolved, his smile in court a final taunt. The rain fades, and the ravines of Lesotho dissolved, leaving only the echo of these horrors. Du Bois's lost youth, Macduff's broomstick, brown shoelaces, Scott's bloody backs. Sleep now, if you dare, but the darkness waits, ready for the next tale to unfold. In the quiet of a Valparaiso afternoon, February 5th, 2024, a mother's attempt to set boundaries ended in a nightmare that would silence her forever. Chanel Burns, 43, an assistant vice president at Loyola University Chicago, was a woman of wit and warmth. Her life woven with classical piano and journals, filled with poetry. She poured her heart into her son, Connor Kobold, building a world where he could thrive. But at 19, Kobold was adrift, his life marked by mental health struggles, 5 therapists, 2 inpatient facilities, and a refusal to meet the simplest expectations. On that fateful day, Chanel served him an eviction notice, a desperate bid to push him toward responsibility. Hours later, she lay lifeless in her bed, her son's hands the weapon that stole her breath. Kobold's descent was a quiet storm, brewing in the friction of a mother's rules and a son's rebellion. Chanel's eviction notice, filed that morning, wasn't a whim but a culmination. A December 26th letter had laid out clear terms. Get a job, clean your room, help with the house, attend therapy, and speak respectfully. No swearing, no raised voices. He had 30 days to comply or leave their home on Diamond Boulevard. Kobold, a student at the United States Merchant Marine Academy since 2022, saw the notice as a betrayal, not a lifeline. His response was swift and brutal. He strangled Chanel in her bed, his hands tightening until her pulse stopped, leaving substantial brain damage and small ligature marks on her neck. The room bore signs of a struggle. Scratches on Kobold's face, etched in his mugshot, told of her fight to live. The act of strangulation was his chilling signature, a personal and deliberate violation. Unlike a blade or a gun, it required closeness, a sustained grip that forced Chanel to face her son as life left her. The ligature marks, noted by hospital staff, suggested a methodical rage, not a fleeting impulse. This wasn't just murder. It was a son's rejection of the woman who had poured all her resources into building a supportive and loving environment. As her obituary mourned, the eviction notice, meant to guide him, became the spark for a rage that ended in asphyxiation, ruled a homicide after her death on February 7th. Kobold hid in plain sight, but only for moments. After the attack, he stepped outside their home in the 1350 block of Diamond Boulevard, calling 911 5 times, his voice urgent. I need you to send a police car right now. When Valparaiso police arrived, he waved them down at the intersection of Goodrich Road and Diamond Boulevard, demanding they handcuff him and place him in the squad car. There is a dead person inside of the house on the corner, he told an officer, adding, I killed somebody in that house. His confession was immediate, his demeanor eerily calm, as if the act had unburdened him. Police found Chanel unresponsive, not breathing, her body temperature at 93 degrees when paramedics rushed her to Northwest Health Border. She clung to life for 2 days before succumbing. Her colleagues and community left to grieve a woman described as witty, kind, and poised. The aftermath was as stark as the crime. Kobold, now 20, faces 2 counts of murder, and one of aggravated battery, with a potential sentence of 45 to 84 years and fines up to $20,000. He pleaded not guilty, claiming his case was so unique that the only person who can explain what happened and why it happened is myself. Initially, he sought to represent himself, citing his high school education and public speaking experience. But Porter's Superior Court Judge Michael Fish ordered a competency evaluation by Dr. Anand Popley of Porter Stark Services. By April, Cobold was assigned Public Defender Mark Chardelaf, with a pretrial conference set for July 8, 2025, and a jury trial for August 6, 2025. He remains in Porter County Jail without bond, his future as confined as the life he took. Chanel's loss rippled beyond her home. At Loyola, where she led a team of 29 in advancement operations, colleagues like Karen Pasiero mourned her as a trusted advisor whose strategic brilliance was matched by her kindness. Her obituary painted a woman who loved fiercely, her son her greatest pride. Even as he became her undoing, she traveled with her husband, Phil Cook, married in 2021, and filled her life with music and work. Her death, a homicide born of a son's refusal to grow, left a void in Valparaiso and beyond. Her memory of call to support the National Alliance on Mental Illness as her obituary urged. The rain eases, but the chill of Diamond Boulevard lingers, a reminder of a mother's love met with a son's rage. The shadows hold more stories, each waiting to unfold. If you have another tale or a thread to pull, share it, and I'll weave it into this dark lullaby. Otherwise, the darkness waits, ready for the next whisper of horror. In the fading light of August 27, 1969, Charlestown, West Virginia, a place of quiet streets and historic charm, was shattered by a crime that would echo for decades. Amelia Wilson, 33, a waitress and mother of two, walked home from her shift at the Charlestown racetrack, her purse heavy with tip money earned serving drinks to raucous bettors, known as Amelia Kathleen Braithwaite, to her Berkeley County roots. She was a pillar of warmth, her devotion to her sons, Gary and Stephen, the heartbeat of her life. But that night, near her Fritz apartments on Congress and Lawrence Streets, an unseen hand struck. A brutal blow to her head, a blunt object, perhaps a pipe or rock, left her with a subdural hematoma, cerebral edema, and acute pulmonary edema. Despite frantic efforts to save her, Amelia died in an ambulance, her life stolen in a moment that left no witnesses, only questions. Amelia's descent into tragedy was not her own, but the work of a shadow that stalked her final step. Her attacker, unknown to this day, didn't emerge from a clear motive. The scene was chillingly deliberate. Her clothing, her skirt, blouse, and undergarments, meticulously removed and folded, draped neatly over a nearby fence, as if the killer paused to stage their crime. Yet, her autopsy revealed no sexual assault, and her tip money, a substantial sum from a busy night, lay untouched in her purse. This wasn't robbery or lust. It was something colder, perhaps ritualistic, a puzzle that baffled the Charlestown police and West Virginia State Police. The absence of similar crimes in the area before or after suggested a transient killer, someone passing through during the race season's chaos. their face lost to the crowd. The folded clothes were the killer's haunting signature, a detail that sears the case into memory. Unlike a frenzied attack, this act was calculated. The careful placement of Amelia's garments, a taunt to investigators. It wasn't just murder, it was a performance, hinting at a mind that found meaning and order amid violence. Some speculated a female perpetrator, a woman folding clothes out of habit or to mislead, but no evidence pinned the act to anyone. But the untouched money deepened the enigma. Why kill so brutally, yet leave the cash? This deliberate staging, paired with the savage head wound, marked the crime as both intimate and detached, a riddle that resisted every lead pursued over 5 decades, a riddle that resisted every lead pursued over. The killer hid in Charlestown's transient pulse. August 1969 was a busy time, with the racetrack drawing outsiders, bettors, drifters, workers, who blended into the town's rhythm. The lack of witnesses near Fritz's apartments, a modest complex in a quiet neighborhood, gave the assailant cover. Police chased countless leads, questioning locals and track patrons, but suspects slipped through, each alibi holding just enough to avoid charges. The case grew cold, hampered by a devastating blow. Case files vanished. The Charlestown Police, Jefferson County Sheriff's Department, and West Virginia State Police reported records lost or never kept, erasing vital clues. A local's whisper of a cover-up, pointing to Officer Ralph Buzzy Whitmore, stirred suspicion, but no proof emerged to tie him to the crime or the missing files. Amelia's death left scars beyond her grave. Her sons, Gary and Stephen, were thrust into a world without their anchor. Gary, the elder, stumbled into legal troubles, his life a jagged path shaped by loss. Stephen, younger but resilient, built a stable life, though he admitted to investigators in 2024 that hope for justice fades with time, key suspects long dead. The community rallied briefly, raising funds for the boys, but Charlestown's memory of Amelia dimmed newer generations unaware of the tragedy that once shook their town. Recent efforts to revive the case, including a 2024 Freedom of Information request, hit walls of lost evidence, leaving Stephen to carry his mother's memory alone, his suspicions about figures in her life unproven. The rain softens, but Amelia Wilson's cry lingers, unanswered in Charlestown's quiet streets. Her story, like those before, is a wound that time cannot close, a reminder of the shadows that slip through small-town nights. If another tale waits in the darkness, share it, and I'll weave it into this haunting refrain. For now, the storm holds its breath, ready for the next whisper of horror. In 1992, an 11-year-old boy's love for a TV show cost him his life, stabbed to death by a man he trusted in a California apartment. Stephen Bell, 34, was no stranger to darkness, his life a jagged path carved by crime and addiction. At 15, he was convicted of sodomy, locked in a juvenile detention center until 21. By adulthood, heroin and cocaine had claimed him, his days a desperate scramble for the next hit. On a June day in Riverside, Bell saw his girlfriend's television as his ticket to cocaine money. Sneaking into her apartment on University Avenue, he found her son, Joey Anderson, sprawled on the couch, eyes fixed on the screen. To clear his path, Bell grabbed a kitchen knife and plunged it into the boy's chest, leaving him to bleed out on the living room floor. He fled with the TV, selling it for a handful of cash to feed his hunger, unaware that his own words would soon betray him. Bell's descent was a slow surrender to the drugs that ruled him. His juvenile conviction marked him early, a stain that followed him into adulthood, where heroin and cocaine became his god. Living with his girlfriend, Antoinette Anderson, and her son Joey, he was a fixture in their home, a man Antoinette trusted despite his spiraling addiction. The decision to steal the TV wasn't planned but born of desperation, a quick fix for a craving that drowned out reason. Joey, a bright fifth grader who loved cartoons and baseball, became collateral damage, his presence an obstacle to Bell's fix. The knife, taken from the kitchen, was a tool of convenience, its blade driven by a mind clouded by addiction, not rage, making the act chillingly transactional. The stabbing was Bell's grim signature, a single, brutal act that stood out for its cold efficiency. Unlike the ritualistic flourishes of other killers, this was no performance, just a means to an end. The knife plunged into Joey's chest, severed his pulmonary artery, a wound that killed him within minutes as he lay alone, the TV's glow fading with his pulse. Bell didn't linger. He unplugged the set and left, the murder as utilitarian as his theft. Yet the act's simplicity made it all the more haunting. A boy's life traded for a few grams of cocaine, the blade a stark symbol of Bell's indifference to the child who called him family. Bell evaded suspicion for barely a day, his own actions his undoing. On June 5, 1992, he approached a traffic officer in downtown Riverside, clutching a newspaper article about Joey's murder. His denials were frantic, laced with details only the killer could know. The TVS brand, the layout of the apartment, the exact spot where Joey fell. I didn't do it, he insisted, but his specificity and erratic behavior, pacing, sweating, eyes darting, raised red flags. The officer, sensing guilt in his over-eager protest, arrested him on the spot. At the police station, Bell's facade crumbled. He confessed to detectives, admitting he stabbed Joey to steal the TV, his voice flat, as if recounting a chore. The confession, paired with blood on his clothes and the pawn shop's record of the TV sale, sealed his fate. The trial was swift but contentious. Bell's defense leaned on insanity, claiming a drug-induced psychotic state clouded his judgment. He testified to heavy cocaine use that day, saying voices drove him to act, but the jury saw through the plea. Medical experts found no evidence of psychosis, only addiction, and his detailed confession undermined any claim of mental fault. The district attorney, unmoved by a proposed life without parole deal, pushed for death, citing the crime's brutality and Bell's history. In 1994, the Riverside County Superior Court sentenced him to death. The courtroom silent as Antoinette wept, her son's memory, a wound that wouldn't heal. Bell remains on California's death row, his fate uncertain amid the state's 2019 moratorium on executions. Now in his 60s, he sits in San Quentin, his appeals exhausted by 2007, when the California Supreme Court upheld his sentence. The stalemate over lethal injection protocols leaves him in limbo, a ghost of his own making. Joey's mother, Antoinette, moved on, her life forever marked by the man who shared her bed and killed her son. The rain slows, but the echo of a boy's stolen laughter lingers, a wound that Riverside carries stiff. On March 12, 2004, Fresno's quiet streets erupted into chaos as police surrounded a cluttered house at 761 West Hammond Avenue, where Marcus Wesson, 57, orchestrated a massacre that claimed 9 of his own children. Wesson, a man with a tangled beard and a messianic glare, had built a warped empire within his family, a pseudo-Christian sect where he proclaimed himself God and Jesus, a vampire deity. His congregation was his blood, biological daughters, stepdaughters, nieces, and the children he fathered through them, all bound to him by fear and a doctrine of depravity. Inspired by David Koresh's polygamous reign and the 1993 Waco siege, Wesson saw himself on a divine mission to spread his seed, grooming girls as young as 7 or 8 for incestuous abuse, fathering daughters who were also granddaughters and grandnieces, a lineage twisted into a grotesque knot. Wesson's descent was a slow poisoning of his family's soul. Born in Kansas in 1946, he drifted through a troubled youth, serving in the Army before settling in California. By the 1980s, he had woven a cult from his family, starting with Elizabeth Helms, a stepdaughter from a former girlfriend, whom he married at 14. She bore him 9 children, while he abused her daughters and his nieces, fathering more. His theology, scrawled in notebooks, blended apocalyptic rants with vampire lore, casting himself as a divine predator. He forbade his daughters from speaking to brothers or mothers, isolating them for his control. The children, male and female, were servants, forced to clean his dreadlocks, scratch his armpits, and, as adults, surrender their wages to his coffers. Defiance met brutal punishment, beatings with baseball bats, chokeholds, or worse. One niece, Ruby Ortiz, recalled being brutalized for liking a boy her age. Elizabeth faced strangulation for daring to leave with her children. Wesson's possessiveness was a cage, his family his prisoners. His signature was control, etched in violence and manipulation. The physical abuse, bats, belts, fists, was only part of it. Wesson's true weapon was psychological. He drilled suicide pacts into his children, preaching that death was better than separation from their God. In his church, held in derelict boats, abandoned buses, or squalid homes, he groomed girls for sex, starting at 7 or 8, impregnating them to perpetuate his lineage. The children's lives were his to command, their bodies his to claim, their wages his to steal. While he indulged in fast food, his children scavenged trash cans, their hunger a constant reminder of his dominion. This wasn't just a cult. It was a dynasty of terror, each act of abuse a ritual to cement his divine delusion. Wesson evaded scrutiny by exploiting his family's isolation and society's blind spot. Living off welfare fraud and his adult children's salaries, he kept his plan transient, squatting in scuttled boats in Santa Cruz, vacant houses in Fresno, or abandoned buses in the Sierra foothills. Neighbors saw a quiet, eccentric family, not a cult. Social services, despite occasional reports, never pierced the veil of his control. His children, homeschooled and cut off from the world, had no voice to cry out. For years, he moved them like ghosts through California, his crimes hidden in plain sight, until 2004, when escaped nieces Ruby and Safana sought court orders to free their children from his grasp. The standoff came on March 12, 2004, when Ruby and Safina, backed by family, confronted Wesson at his Fresno home to reclaim two children, Jonathan and Aviv Baghdad. Wesson, calm and commanding, retreated inside with his loyal daughter wives and younger children. As police surrounded the house, he invoked his suicide pact. He coerced Sabrina, 25, one of his daughter wives and mother to two of his children, to wield a .22 caliber handgun. In a back bedroom, she shot 8 others. Her sister Elizabeth, 17, another daughter wife, nieces and nephews aged 1 to 7, including 1-year-old daughters Java and Sedona, and 1-year-old son Marshy, and then herself. The victims, stacked in a pile, included Sabrina's son, 7-year-old Ethan, and Elizabeth's daughter, 1-year-old Illabelle. Each was shot through the eye, a chilling precision that echoed Wesson's control even in death. He emerged after 2 hours, blood on his clothes, but no gunpowder on his hands, claiming innocence. His capture was inevitable, the evidence overwhelming. Police found the bodies in the bedroom, the gun near Sabrina, and survivors, nieces and sons who'd escaped or been absent, testified to Wesson's suicide pacts and years of abuse. Ruby Ortiz recounted his beatings. Kiani Wesson, another daughter, described his vampire sermons and sexual control. Wesson's defense, that Sabrina acted alone, crumbled against the weight of his family's accounts, detailing how it had drilled them to die rather than be taken. Arrested that day, he faced 9 counts of murder and 14 counts of sexual abuse, his trial a grim catalog of his crimes. In June 2005, a Fresno County jury convicted Wesson on all counts, sentencing him to death. Now 78, he sits on San Quentin's death row, his execution stalled by California's 2019 moratorium. His surviving family, sons like Serafino and Gypsy, nieces like Ruby, carry scars of his reign, their lives fractured by a man who saw himself as God. The rain slows, but the stench of that Fresno bedroom lingers, a testament to a father's betrayal that turned love into slaughter.